Welcome back, everyone, to the A.D.D. show, where we're not always right, but we're never wrong. I'm Marc.
And I'm Hans, and welcome back to another great episode, guys. Last week, if you heard, we did the AFC East and the AFC South. Today, we're going to get into the AFC North and the AFC West. Great powerhouse teams. A lot of young teams. Almost every team in these two divisions are pretty young, on their way up and coming.
Yep.
Also go over a couple things that have happened in sports news since we last talked to you guys. Carson Wentz was traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a second-round pick this year and a third-rounder next year. A third round this year, second round next year. That could be a first.
Yep. If he plays 75% of the snaps, they get a first-round pick. If he plays 70% of the snaps and they make the playoffs, they go to first-round pick.
Yeah.
So, realistically, they're getting a first-round pick next year from Indianapolis unless Carson Wentz gets hurt.
I mean, he's been hurt for a few years now, so we're not saying that's going to happen. But yeah,
I think he played every game this year. But besides getting benched.
Yeah.
Besides getting benched, I think he played every game this year. So, I think overall, I mean, the thing that everybody's talking about is Philly is eating $38 million of dead cap space.
That's so much money. That
is telling your team we're rebuilding.
Yep.
And it's not this year that we're starting. It's next year. And that is it's crazy in today's NFL because the turnaround is very quick in the NFL. It can be anyways.
Yeah.
It can be quick. Like, you can have that down year, but you could be right back next year.
The NFL is not quite like the NBA, where the NBA does, it's more like a dynasty. Baseball, it's a 4 or 5 year turnaround because of the minor G leagues, the minor leagues. Whereas football, you make a couple right moves, man, it's you're there.
Right.
So,
I think Philly is definitely the least in the East, if you want to say that. Especially, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to be a good fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, if you pay attention to Matthew Berry and everything, he was top 10 when he played this year, which, that's good for fantasy. I mean, I just don't think it's going to equate to wins.
I think for me, he reminds me a lot of Tua in some ways, where the jury's still out. I'm not 100% sold on. I'm not saying Hurts isn't the answer, but he only had like 4 starts, and
definitely. I don't know if he's the answer to, and I don't think the rumor is Philly's thinking of taking a quarterback at the number 6. I think they draft 6.
Yeah.
So you're looking at, what are you doing? Why would you even have drafted him in the second round if he's not your future? And now all of a sudden you've played him 4 games, you fire your coach, your GM is still there that drafted this kid, but yet now it's...
I think for me, the Eagles are probably... I know we'll bring up more about the Eagles, but personally for me, the Eagles are probably in a better situation if they were to just bring in another veteran and just keep Hurts and have some sort of competition. But you're wasting a number 6 pick when you have the ability there to pick up that wide receiver you failed to get the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be in the top 2, Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith by that pick.
Or Weddle.
Or Weddle. Yeah, I think it's Weddle. All 3 of those are just...
Or Waddle. Is it Waddle or Weddle?
I think it's Weddle.
Weddle.
And they missed on Ayuk, and then they got the Rager kid, which by taking Rager, they picked after Dallas and missed on CeeDee Lamb. They picked before Dallas, or whatever it was. They missed on a lot of talent.
The jury's still out on that kid. I don't want to say he's going to be a bust, but he was hurt a lot this year.
He definitely could go into next year as their number 1. So, I mean, absolutely. So that's saying a lot. Philly's got a lot of work to do. So which one do you want to start with? You want to start with the East or the West?
The North?
I'm sorry, the North. I will say this till the day I'm dead. I've done this every day on the show when we do this. I always get the AFC East and North confused because New England, to me, is in the North with Buffalo and the Jets. They're up north.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Baltimore is in the East. So I keep getting it confused, but I realize so.
I mean, you live on the Eastern Shore, so I can see why you think it's the East, but you're wrong.
You said I live on the Eastern Shore. You live on the Eastern Shore too, my man.
Yeah, I know, but I'm from Massachusetts, so I know Massachusetts, it's... Yeah, so,
okay.
But let's talk about...
I forgot you're badder than everyone.
Go get my car keys, all right?
Car keys.
So, we've got Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. Okay. So last week I did say that Tennessee and Indianapolis, I called Tennessee fraudulent 11-5. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I use fraudulent. I think fraudulent is a big word.
Yeah.
Is a strong word to use there, but I don't think they're as good as their record states.
Okay.
So I'm going to say 2 out of the 4 teams in this division are not as good as their record says they are.
Okay.
Okay. So that's Pittsburgh and Baltimore. if you dive deep into these rosters, there is question marks. Now, Pittsburgh defensively, very good. Okay, but Dupree's a free agent, which could really hurt them if they lose him.
Yeah.
Offensively, they have, surprisingly to say, they have no run game. To say that from a Pittsburgh Steelers team has no run game is surprising. I love James Conner.
And their running backs aren't bad. That's the problem.
I just think their offensive line is bad.
Or is it coaching? That's my concern. Is it coaching?
Is it the offensive scheme? Is it this? Is it that? Because there's some games where they go off for over 100 and they're running all over you.
You look at Drew Brees with his weak arm the last few years, and they still have 1,000-yard running backs.
Yeah.
Big Ben's arm's falling off, but for some reason they still force him to do what he's not doing 10 years ago. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know why they don't have this. James Conner is a monster when he does well, but what's the issue? That's my problem.
So Jerome Bettis.
Yes.
Okay. Big Ben came into the league, was a rookie, and he got Rookie of the Year. Jerome Bettis pretty much carried that team. The next year, they rode Bettis to the Super Bowl, and Bettis retired. And Big Ben was a game manager. Okay. After that, they turned into a throw-first team, and they lost their identity. And they lost it more and more as the years went on, where now Big Ben can't throw the ball like he used to. Not even close.
No, it's not even close.
And the wide receivers you have are wide receivers that need that big arm. So you don't even have the personnel to do what you want them to do.
Exactly.
Juju's a free agent. James Conner, I love James Conner. I love the story.
Yeah, he's got a great story.
And I also love him as a player. Not being used right, not being used enough. Big Ben is a shell of himself. Even if he comes back, I don't think Pittsburgh is a dominant team next year. Where you're looking a chance at maybe like a 9. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Got to talk into the microphone if you're doing a podcast here.
Come on, Mark.
Like a 9-10 win team. So it's everybody like, well, 9-10 win team. That's good, but they have the potential to be.
Yeah,
I see a huge range for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I can't.
I see like a 6-7 win team or a 9-10 win team. I don't see like a 12 like they were 12-4 this year.
I think for me they got exposed, and I think teams figured them out a little bit, and I don't think that's going to change. I think this is them going forwards, and I think they may not admit it because their defense is so stout, but they have to make some dire changes soon. Yes. Because if they don't make these dire changes soon, they're going to be stuck behind. And I think one of these changes I'm explaining is, what are you doing offensively? I don't want to compare them to the Eagles. That's not what I want to do. Okay. But they're in a situation where they're not far from it. They have a really good defense that's top 5, but your offense is on the downward slope. I'll compare them to DC.
Okay.
DC and Pittsburgh's defense remind me a lot of each other. They're young, they're scrappy, they're really good. The difference is offensively, one's on the upcline and needs the right quarterback. The other one's on the decline and needs more than just a quarterback.
Yep.
So I think DC could be the 10-win team, 12-win team this year, and I think Pittsburgh could be the 5-win team this year, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, so I know where I'm going to go with what their biggest need is, but what's your biggest need for Pittsburgh?
For me, Pittsburgh, I would have to say it's going to be offensively. I would say I'm going to put a tie. I'm going to say tight end would be a good need.
Okay.
And I'm going to probably go with they have Juju, though. Is Juju walking?
Free agent,
so we're going to assume he doesn't come back. They got to figure out wide receiver positions. I would say quarterback, but I'm only saying that because I know Big Ben's coming back, so I'm not going to bring that up. If in a week from now they let Big Ben walk, we'll have a different conversation on the next show. But as of right now, I'm going to go with tight end, and I'll probably go with trying to get a good free agent wide receiver or drafting a good wide receiver out of college to help. Okay. I know they just got Claypool, but honestly, if you think about it, besides if they let Juju walk, all their wide receiver targets left is Juju, Washington, and the other guy, but they don't. I think having a solid tight end would help.
Yeah. I'm going offensive line.
Yeah, it is bad too.
Pouncey just retired, which he wasn't really – he was getting up there, but their offensive line is very bad.
Yeah.
And Big Ben is not the type of quarterback that can run for his life.
No.
That's why they were doing the two-step drop, boom, two-step drop, boom, go, 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 and then they weren't good enough to run the ball. They need offensive line, which is it's a common theme in this division, to be honest with you. But they've got to get younger at quarterback. They've got to get an identity at running back. and they've got to get an offensive line that can do something, or they're going to waste this defense. And this defense carried them, and I will give you your props because we got on you when you said they were, and I think you said close to fraudulent.
I called them frauds. Frauds.
So, I'll give you props on that because you did say that, and where you were talking strength of schedule, you were talking this, that, the other thing, and
beat the Jets by they lost to the Jets, didn't they?
No,
that wasn't them. But they beat the Jets by 3. They beat this other team. They beat Cincy by like 3, and I was like, but no offense to Cincy, they would have been better if Burrow was there a year. But like in general, they got beat by so many. Like they were barely beating bad teams. Like they were playing Dallas strength of schedule, and they were healthy. Dallas wasn't. That's the difference. I tell people is like I did think Pittsburgh was exposed, and I used the word fraudulent, but I think it was worse than that. I think they exposed the steel curtain, that I think the dynasty of a steel yellow team, I think they're on their way out. I don't.
And it's going to be interesting because you have 3 teams in that division that all made the playoffs. And me personally, I think one of them, and the Steelers were the one that won the division, and they're probably the worst out of the 3 right now, and close to being the worst in the division, and that's only because of just so many major holes. And if you're a free agent, is that a destination right now, knowing that they don't know who their quarterback is going to be this year, let alone the next couple years? So that's really interesting. So Baltimore.
Okay.
All right. Everybody knows
time for this.
Everybody knows how I feel about Baltimore. But we did this thing on Facebook a little while ago where you said, throw your favorite team out there and we'll say something nice. Okay.
You didn't say anything nice about any of these teams.
No. And so the way I'm looking at it is, let's be honest. Yeah. And I'll tell you how I honestly feel about these teams. Now, I don't know if this young lady listens to the show regularly. I don't know if she's a friend of yours or I don't know who she is, but her name's Jamie. Her Facebook thing is Jamie DV. Okay. And she put the Raven flag up here. Okay. And she is one of these people that is kind of a realistic Ravens fan. Okay. And that's kind of an oxymoron to say. But, you said Lamar is an incredible athlete. J.K. Dobbins is a sleeper. Defense is young and fast. And
when I said athlete, notice how I didn't say quarterback.
Right. And said, I'm sorry, your offense is suspect, and your defense can't rush the passer. If you pay Lamar, you will set your franchise back years. She goes, tell me something I don't know. Okay? Everybody knows that listens to this show or even listens to me outside of this show. I am not a fan of Lamar Jackson. But quarterback's not their biggest need.
No, it's not.
Their biggest need is they have so many free agents, so little money, and no talent on offense. I say that, and when I say no talent on offense, their offensive line is makeshift. Their running back, J.K. Dobbins, is a stud.
Yeah.
I love this
I think
kid.
He's phenomenal.
And with Lamar Jackson, I think you're going to see a dynamic run game for the next couple years. Hollywood Brown showed some signs at the end of the season of being a good wide receiver.
That's what he is, though, a good wide receiver.
Yes, and Mark Andrews, as much as the yards and the things go, being a top 5 tight end in the league, okay, I'll give you that. Drops the ball way too much in key situations. He disappears.
Yeah.
And you need so much help on the outside offensively, but you don't have a quarterback where you can sign a free agent and say, "Come play with us and get catches," because Lamar can't throw the ball.
This is one of the conversations I'd had with her, and I had also with Bray, one of the listeners and somebody I work with is. We're all on the same page pretty much here about the Ravens, and that is that they need so much more help than just quarterback. And I'm not trying to say Lamar's not the answer. What I'm saying is they're like, well, let's just bring in Michael Gallup. Let's just bring in Allen Robinson. Let's just bring in a top wide receiver, and let's do this. But you had decent talent at wide receiver. I'm not saying you had great. They had decent wide receivers, and look what happened. You still couldn't get it done. They're like, but we went 13-3 or 14-2. But when the playoffs got here, you crumbled. Your defense is good. I think there may be a little bit more suspect than we think. This is what I want to say. Excuse me, I got hiccups. I'm not saying it'll work. But you realize you need to find out the strengths of your quarterback. What is he good at and what is he bad at? I think he's a very dynamic runner, and I don't think I've ever seen someone run like he does. I think he can throw the ball, but I think when you make him throw it, you're going to lose the game. So why not roll with some sort of an Army-style Veer 60s offense? Pass it twice a game. Do all slants, all sweeps, all 3 running backs, 2 tight ends on the field, and push people down the field. Don't let Lamar throw it once, just like a Navy or just like an Army offense in college. And I bet you it could work. But if you're Baltimore, you have to pick one. Are you running or are you throwing?
Yeah.
And you have to stick to it, because I don't think bringing in 2 top wide receivers is going to change the fact that Lamar throws a duck after 30 yards.
That will work. It would work in the regular season, and it would work against the non-dynamic offenses.
Yes.
It
would work against the Chiefs.
It won't get you a Super Bowl.
That's the thing. I don't think their play style at all is going to get them a Super Bowl.
No, and I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place.
They're like Pittsburgh.
I think you have to pay Lamar. If you're Baltimore, I don't see how you can justify to your fan base not paying Lamar. Or say pulling what Dallas is pulling with, we always make fun of you because you bring up Dallas and stuff, but this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Pulling what Dallas is pulling with Dak and franchising him a couple times. Yep. And seeing possibly what can we get in the draft, or what else is out there.
Absolutely. I understand.
But the thing is you're going to have to draft skill positions, because I don't think you can sign them. Because you don't have the money, one, to sign the top-tier guys.
No.
And I don't think the mid-tier guys are going to take less money.
And if I'm a wide receiver, that's not somewhere I want to go.
No.
It's not.
And the thing is their biggest need is you still have to bolster that offensive line.
Yeah.
They got beat up in the playoffs and everything this past year. And, yes, they ran the ball excellently. But I think defensive line... If you can't rush the passer, I mean, look what Kansas City did. It got exposed in the Super Bowl because Tampa Bay could rush the passer. Mm-hmm. And every time Mahomes had problems was when you could rush the passer. And I don't care how good a quarterback you are. You get in his face more than once a game, and they're going to struggle. You hear footsteps, you scramble more, you move more than what you normally do.
Hearing footsteps is a real thing.
So Baltimore, I think defensive line is huge. Their secondary is good. Their secondary is really good. I would even put really good out there. Their linebackers are suspect, and their defensive line is suspect.
See, I want to add something to that, because I actually do want to compare them to their rival. Them and their rival are very similar to me. Their defenses are, again, really good. But here's the difference. Both your offenses are question marks. People are like, well, Baltimore's offense is efficient. But its efficiency has gone down from his rookie year to his sophomore to his junior, because teams are figuring him out. If he does not change his play style even a little bit to become more dynamic, and actually, I would love to see a downset hike. He takes 7 steps back and throws it like Patrick Mahomes would to Tyreek Hill. People are like, well, that's Patrick Mahomes. I've seen Dak make that throw. I've seen Herbert make that throw. I've seen Burrow make that throw. I've seen more quarterbacks make that throw, but not him. And
we're not fans of Hollywood Brown. Is that fair to say for you that you're not a fan?
I think people are making him as a number one, and I don't think he is.
Okay.
I think he's a Corey Davis to me.
Put him on Kansas City instead of Tyreek Hill.
He's a 1,000-yard wide receiver.
Is he a Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. You have somebody that is that talented, that fast.
I think if you put him on the Bengals, he's a 1,000-yard wide receiver.
That's the thing. It's you have to figure this out, and I feel that there is so many, again, with Pittsburgh, so many holes that are covered up during the regular season to get you these 10 wins that you don't have, that people are shocked in the playoffs, or people are like, oh, well, they beat Tennessee. Tennessee, what did I say last week about Tennessee? They were not a legit 11-5 team. And so both these teams, Pittsburgh's not 12-4.
No.
Baltimore's not 11-5.
I don't think so.
Now the next team, I think, is the best team in the division.
Are we talking about the Bengals?
The Browns.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the
Browns.
Yeah.
And where I think the Browns' biggest need is playmaker. They need another playmaker. They need another complement to Jarvis Landry. I do believe that Austin Hooper will come into his own in that offense.
And Njoku as well. They got 2 great tight ends.
And I just think they need, and they have a couple good complementary wide receivers, but they don't have that true scary guy. Where Landry's that underneath guy that's going to catch 100 balls a season.
I think for me, you have what? Jarvis Landry and OBJ, right? They're on the outsides, X and Y, whatever you want to call it. I think if they have them both, I think bringing in I'm not saying a Cole Beasley or whatever the kid Scotty Miller, but I think a solid slot wide receiver would really help them out.
See, safety net. That's where I want Jarvis. I want Jarvis in
he would
the
play
slot,
well in
and
the
I
slot.
would rather see an Allen Robinson type on the outside,
that could happen.
Michael Gallup
that
on
could
the
happen.
outside.
Jarvis is a little big, but still, I think in general, I think you're right. I think if you shuffle them around offensively for the Browns, they're there. And I know this sounds crazy, and I was not a Baker fan. I'm not. I'm still not a huge fan of his, but he is impressing me.
Yep.
He is going up that ladder. But this is my thing. I still think if we're talking offensively, he may still be the biggest question mark. Not in a bad way. I still think he's good enough to win the games, but he's getting better.
What they're asking him to do, he's very good at.
That's what I'm saying. They're not asking him to go he's not asking him to go crazy. They're not asking him to overdo it.
Think about this, though, okay? Think about how we thought of Baker Mayfield coming out of college, okay? And I know you thought this. I thought he was much better than what you thought. And not much better. I thought he was going to be what we've seen. His attitude, though. People were worried. Now, they asked him to be a game manager. They asked him to hand the ball off 25-plus times a game and only throw it 15 to 20 times a game. Yeah. And he said, okay.
Yeah.
And he totally could have blown this up or made the team worse. Instead, this team is scary good.
I agree with you. I think as long as they keep this game plan, using their two backs and short dump offs and even having Jarvis Landry throw and Odell throw and doing all this stuff they're doing, I think as long as Baker's under 18 throws a game, 20 throws a game, a touchdown too, he's fine. But I think if it does come to the point that someone's outscoring you, i.e. let's say they play the Chiefs in the playoffs, Chiefs are up by scores, they're going to force Baker to throw. That's the only time I'm concerned because it's out of his game plan. I think he's really good for what they're asking, but can he do the inevitable of what we saw him do in college?
Yeah.
Can he do the over 400-yard game? Can he do the 5-touchdown game if he had to?
When it matters. So when it matters.
Yes.
Okay.
So to me, I still think I think he has the possibility to be a Pro Bowl quarterback this upcoming season. I do. But
defensively, solid.
I love their defense. I'm a huge, as a West Virginia fan, everybody knows I'm a huge Carl Joseph fan. That dude's a monster. I love that he went there. That defense is dirty.
Yep.
This team, to me, if they play right and they get rid of the word Browns, that stereotypical bad team for so long, they could honestly be a number one seed. They really could be.
They could. They're close.
They're almost there.
And that's why, it's funny to say because depth.
Yeah.
Their biggest need is depth.
Just adding a bunch of good guys to back up the guys you already have.
And it is scary how good they are and how they get in. And sort of this past year was what we thought 2 years ago was going to be.
But they finally have the right coach.
Yes.
They finally brought in the coach, the Stefanski
from the Vikings. And the team bought in. The key players bought in.
To what he was selling.
And that is the key. And so for me, out of these three teams, and we'll talk about Cincinnati in a minute. Everybody knows I'm a Cincinnati fan, but we'll talk about Cincinnati in a minute. But these three teams made the playoffs. Okay? Which one do you think which one is better off? Which one is going to stay more? Which one isn't going to have the drop off? Are we going to have Pittsburgh and Baltimore at the top again?
So
because
I'll
it's
do
the
mine.
AFC North.
I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, but I won't include the. I'll just do 1, 2, 3 of those three. I won't tell you where I'm going to put the Bengals yet. Browns are going to be 1. They're going to win the division, and I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win 12 games.
Okay.
12, 13 games. I want to say number 2, and I'm going to say 9 and 7 is going to be Baltimore. Okay. And I think the team that misses the playoffs with less than 8 wins is probably going to be. I think it's going to be Pittsburgh, and I won't say why, but I think the team with 8 wins will be Cincy. I think Cincy will finish 3rd in that division this year.
Okay.
They're going to make the jump over Pittsburgh because I think they have more heart and they're younger. I think Pittsburgh is on that downward swing. And they're the first of those 3. I think it's going to go from up here to, whoa, Pittsburgh, you got really bad really quick. Yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
All right. So now Cincinnati. They need help in a lot of areas. Offensive skill positions is not one of them.
I don't think so. Not really.
Secondary is not one of them.
Von Bell's a monster.
And
Von Bell's a monster. I like him. Bates. Jesse Bates. No.
Yeah, Jesse Bates the third or something like that. Put his pinky up, but he's a free agent. But they've already said that they are going to either bring him back, franchise him, or sign him long term. The talk is heavy that they are going to go after every single offensive lineman in this free agent class.
If you want to protect your future Hall of Fame that you think he's going to be, and I'm not saying he won't be. He impressed me when he played. You have to protect that kid. What happened to him, he can't be... And look, you know this as a Bengals fan. He was throwing 40-plus times a game. You gotta change this up because that's not who he is.
No, I mean, he can be.
He can be, but you shouldn't ask him to be.
But you paid Mixon a ton of money to be a bell cow.
You did.
And you need Mixon to have holes. And, they...
To do that, you have those two great linemen already. One was injured, and you drafted the guy last year, right?
Yep.
And you get one more top. If you were able to get Sewell in this position, that offensive line is going to be freaking nasty.
They have the huge reports is they've already put packages together for Thuney from the Patriots. The old tackle that they just traded away in Washington went to the 49ers. He's a free agent now.
Did he go to the 49ers or Houston?
No, he went to the 49ers.
I know who you're talking about.
He wanted out of Washington bad. He's a free agent now. And
he wasn't the one with the cancer, though, was he?
Yeah. Yes.
I thought he went...
He went to the 49ers.
I'm thinking of Tunsil from the Dolphins. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about. And I know the guys are going to get on us for not remembering this.
Yeah.
If you guys... I'm going to jump the gun here. We'll go back. For me, I want to ask this question. If they got Thuney, or Tooney, whatever his name is, and they, in the number 6 pick, acquired Kyle Pitts, are you jumping up and down with joy for the upcoming season? Pitts and Tooney as a free agent instead of going after Sewell if he's not there.
I want another offensive lineman. I don't need
in free agency.
I don't need a top offensive lineman.
If you see your Bengals target that guy and Pitts in the draft, are you happy about that?
I would really love to see Pitts in a Bengals uniform.
Yeah.
Especially playing with Burrow.
Yeah.
Because I saw what Burrow did with Randy Moss's son. And it was something. Yeah. He likes the tight end position.
I'm surprised Thaddeus Moss still really isn't playing. But I want to go back with you because I know you're a Bengals fan here. I'll do mine before you do yours. I think the 3 top positions the Bengals need, I think it's 1 to 3, and it's obvious. I think it's offensive line. To me, that's number 1. And I'm going to do a toss-up for me because I think you could go after Hunter Henry. I think you could go after tight end. If you wanted to pay the money, you could. There's decent backup tight ends. Mm-hmm. I think your number 2 need to me is I think it's inside linebacker. I think you got to do the middle of the field. Your defensive line is nasty. I think it's good enough to get the job done.
Yes.
Top 15, top 20 in the league.
Right.
Your safety group, your secondary, top 10, top 15 in the league, good enough. Your middle linebackers are worrying me. Yeah. And I think if you can get Micah Parsons there, if you like that guy, I think that's who he is, the Penn State kid.
Yeah.
That's an option. But I think it's a toss-up for me between those two. But if you're at number 6 and Sewell's on the board or that other tight end or their other offensive lineman kid, the Bengals have to protect their future. And no offense, I'd rather you give up 40 points than have Burrow get hurt again.
Yeah, no. I'm going to say the trenches.
Yeah, the trenches. Yep.
Both sides. Offensive line, defensive line.
And that could be a middle linebacker that plays on the line, too.
Right, and linebacker are the biggest weaknesses on the team.
And I would consider tight end in the trenches, too.
Yeah, if we could get a tight end, I'm okay with it. If we can get Pitts, I don't want to sign a free agent. I don't want to sign a big name free agent. I don't want to waste that money. I would rather, to be honest with you, waste the money. It's not a waste of money, but I'd rather sign a couple offensive linemen and maybe shoot for the mid-tier free agent wide receivers.
Yeah.
Because I really don't think you need a number 1 wide receiver. I don't think you need an Allen Robinson. I really don't. I don't think you need a Jamar Chase. I don't think you need a Devontae Smith or a Weddle.
Yeah.
The only reason why I say that is because look at Tyler Boyd's stats. Mm-hmm. Just look at his stats for the last 3 years with technically no quarterback throwing to him. And look at what T. Higgins did. And T. Higgins' second half of the year, he went down a little bit, but it was because him and Burrow weren't playing together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on what they have offensively. And yes, tight end is a big hole. It is a big hole, and you need it. But I don't want to spend Hunter Henry money, and I don't want to.
I think you'd be better off. I think you'd be better off finding. I'm not saying an O.J. Howard, but one of that caliber, a next level down guy that's only going to be $6 or $7 million. I think that would really help out.
I would rather. They have the fifth most money to spend this offseason. And they've already said most of their money is going to be spent on the offensive line. And if people want to come and play. Now, my thing is this. If you're an offensive lineman and you look at that team, is that a team that you want to play for? Is Burrow the type of quarterback you want to play for? Is Mixon the type of guy you want to block? Is this the offense you want to play in?
See, this is a fun way to ask because I never played tackle or guard in football, obviously, so I couldn't answer that question, but I think we do this from a wide receiver perspective, a running back perspective. If you're a quarterback, do you want to go there? As an offensive line, I think I would want to go to a line that I get to start with, and I know I'm around other great pieces. For example, obviously I'm just going to use my team, for example, like Dallas with a couple older veterans that are decent. You get to go there, you get veteran leadership. Same thing with if you go to the Bengals. They have those two young guys. They have the guy you guys drafted 2 years ago that was injured, and then the guy last year, Jonah Williams or something. And then you have the other kid. That would be great because you know you're next to two other 5-star college linemen that were just hurt. So now you're looking at, well, we could be the new boys here in Cincy. We could be the dirty Cincy, but whatever you want to call it, that could be the new thing.
I will say this, and I'm not opposed to it, because this is what they did for DJ Reader, the defensive lineman free agent. They overpaid him. I don't care. If you overpay a guard or a tackle and they're starters for you for 6-7 years, and I don't care if you because you have to protect your franchise.
I think any left tackle, center, right tackle, right guard, any of those. We're talking Tunsil's, we're talking Connor Williams, we're talking the guy you just talked about. Any of these guys, I think for me, and I've said this for a long time, you don't want to overpay people, but I think there's no such thing as overpaying an offensive lineman. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying, yes, $30 million's overpaying it. Even Eric Decker, like when you know you've got a top 10 player, just top 10 at one position at like a left tackle, you cannot afford to let that guy go.
Right.
So if you want to overpay by $3 million more than the Patriots, then do it because you know what it's going to bring you in money by keeping your quarterback on his feet.
And this Bengals organization knows what happens when you let go of a guy that you think you don't want to pay for.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the name, but Whitworth. He went to the Rams.
Yeah,
he was a free agent. He was
a
staple on the Bengals offensive line. The Bengals didn't want to pay a second contract for him. And he went to the Super Bowl. He led that offensive line, and that offensive line was dirty. Now he got old, but he didn't get old during the contract. The contract's over now, and he's a free agent again, but I think he's retiring.
Yeah.
Like, the Bengals have to understand, this is your franchise. Like, your franchise, the face of your franchise is your quarterback right now.
So you have the one position you need. Now your climb
climb
started last year, but you fell and slid down to the bottom again. Your climb is starting again.
Yes.
You have the fresh year. He's going to be ready to go. You are starting the climb with your picks in the ice. You're working your way up the mountain, and you cannot fall. You can't mess this up. So with that being said, we'll move to the next division, but I want to ask you before you do, where do you think, do you agree with me, Browns, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, or do you think the Bengals make that big of a jump? I know your heart says 16-0 I do the same thing, but honestly, do you think they're 8-8?
I'd be happy with an 8-8 season.
I would too.
That's what I was hoping this season was going to be, and it was. You saw signs of them getting better with Burrow.
Yeah.
I got to see what happens in free agency.
Okay.
And see what Pittsburgh and Baltimore do.
Of course, we'll do power rankings.
I think the Bengals are going to have an easy schedule because they're going to have a last place schedule.
Yep.
Pittsburgh's going to have a first place schedule, and Baltimore's going to have, so Pittsburgh's going to be playing the division winners from last year.
Yep.
And Baltimore's going to be playing a tough schedule. I could see that, yes. I actually see Baltimore as more of a dark horse to win the division because I think they're built for the regular season.
Yeah.
Which frustrates the hell out of me because it's just like Indianapolis back in the day with Peyton Manning for many, many years. Mm-hmm. They were that team that ran roughshod over the whole league in the whole regular season, 14-2, 13-3 all the time, and they lose the last game of the season because they're resting their players. So they would be like 14-1 before the last game, and so I just see Baltimore as that danger team of still winning the division, but I could easily see that playing out.
Yeah.
Now this division to me, is very interesting. The AFC West.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a single team in this division that is going to even come close to Kansas City. I really don't. I know people are like, "Oh, Kansas City got exposed." Blah blah.
They didn't get no.
They'll get better at offensive line. If you're a veteran offensive lineman, you're going to go there. You'll take the league minimum if it's like your swan song, like it's your last go round. I think they'll get wide receivers. I think Mahomes will get those guys that may not get signed to what they want, but can sign a 1-year deal and prove what they can do. So when the cap goes up again next year, instead of staying the same, they'll get the contract that they thought they could have gotten.
I'll make my Chiefs pick easy. If we're going to start with the Chiefs, we'll start at the top. Easy. You draft one with your first round pick, and you sign one with as much money as you can. You bring in 2 more offensive linemen. You have to. You got that guy coming back who sat out due to COVID.
Yep.
You had Eric Decker get hurt. I understand that. I think it's Decker, right? Fisher. Sorry, I get them both confused. Eric Fisher get hurt. He comes back. That dude that was a doctor or that wanted to went to school, he said, I don't want to sit because of COVID. Then you get them 2 back. You go after. You try to make that Tooney deal, or you try to get a top agent lineman. You have a $500 million quarterback who got destroyed in that Super Bowl game. I have never seen a quarterback. Like, if I'm the owner of that team, I don't even know his name, but if I'm the owner of that team, I'm calling Andy Reid immediately saying, protect my asset, just like the Bengals are going to have to do. If I'm them, I don't sign 1 wide receiver. I don't make 1 pick, maybe some defensive picks in the draft. Offensive line, defense, completely. Your skill positions are fine. You don't need anything. Your running back's fine. I mean, I still think at times they don't run it enough, but that's fine. I think you have to.
They have Le'Veon Bell?
Yeah. He got like 3 catches. Not in the Super Bowl, though, but he got like 3 catches a game before that. But my point is with the Chiefs, I don't think they need any help. I think they had 1 dude sit out, and they lost Decker, right before the Super Bowl.
Fisher right the first time.
Right before the Super Bowl. Gone.
Yeah.
So people are like, well, that's not a reason they lost. I'm like, the reason the Chiefs lost that Super Bowl was not because Tom Brady's better. Yes, he is better. Their team's smarter. They lost because the Buccaneers' defense exposed your terrible O-line.
Yeah.
Because they said, look, Patrick Mahomes is great, but the defensive line of the Buccaneers, like, we ain't scared of him. We're going to get in there. And what happened when they got in there? Deer in headlights. Patrick Mahomes was not prepared to be rushed that much. I've never seen a quarterback get touched that much in one game.
So I agree. You need to get deeper at offensive line.
Yep.
I still think skill position is huge for them. I think you have Tyreek Hill. I think you have Travis Kelce. You need another one. You need another consistent one.
Well, they have Pringle.
Like I said, you need another consistent one. I mean, Sammy Watkins they have, and
I didn't even hear his name mentioned at all.
It's so you have to
be
the
more money
consistent.
for Allen Robinson.
I mean, that would be crazy.
Nasty.
But I think we're in agreement. They don't need much. They need depth. They need depth.
They need depth. So when their key guys get hurt, they have backups that are second, third round offensive tackles that can buy into the system.
Right.
And I think that'll help them a lot.
So the team that came in second, they were 8-8. They fell apart in the second half of the season. Was the Raiders. And I just think they don't have enough skill position players. And I don't know what their infatuation is of getting rid of Derek Carr. Every year it seems like Derek Carr's up for trade. Or, oh no, we're not going to trade him. Oh yeah, we're going to trade him. Oh no, we're not going to trade him. It's like, make up your mind. Like, is he your guy or isn't he? And I think this year he proved you can win with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their offensive line is okay. I think Josh Jacobs isn't even their best running back on that roster.
That's crazy to think that too.
Richards, I think that
Jalen Richards.
Is it Jalen Richards?
Yeah.
I think he is.
Jalen Richard, maybe.
They have a second guy that came in and they shared carries, but he was more relevant in most games.
Let me ask you this. Other than Jerry Jeudy, who's their second wide receiver?
They didn't even have Jerry Jeudy.
Not Jerry Jeudy. That's Broncos. Who they draft last year?
Yeah, I can't remember because he only played a few games.
That's what I'm saying. You can't name any of their wide receivers. That's their problem is skill position. They have a fantastic tight end.
Yes.
Okay, Waller is a baller, and I'm only saying that because somebody made that famous. Don't get me wrong, but that's their problem. Is even on defense, they're suspect.
Yeah.
Defense, like they have a good game, they have a bad game. They have a good game, they have a bad game. They teetered right around 21st, 23rd all year, and it was just. they were frustrating. They were frustrating to me.
So let me ask you this: is it talent? Is it coaching? Is it?
I don't want to ever drop the ball on coaching. I think he's a good coach. Gruden, thank you. I'm looking at his face like he's everywhere. I don't think Gruden's a bad coach because he wouldn't want a Super Bowl when he coached with the Buccaneers. I think he is a good coach. I just don't know if they know their identity. Like, what are you? I don't want to say what are you doing, but like this is a team that like if you're committed to winning, are you bringing in an Allen Robinson? Are you going after a Michael Gallup?
See, I don't even think they know though.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm looking at it and they're talking about getting rid of Derek Carr for, trading him here and then getting enough assets to go after Deshaun Watson and
but even you don't have the weapons for Deshaun Watson. That's the problem.
And my thing is Las Vegas, that's a destination players might want to go.
It's a hell of a destination.
Okay, and I understand it's COVID, so Las Vegas might not be the most popular place right now.
Well, the dancers will have masks on. It's fine.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you're a destination, and Derek Carr is not somebody you don't want to say go play with. Mm-hmm. He's not somebody that may be top on your list, but he's not last.
No, definitely not last.
And their offensive line is decent. Their tight end is top 3.
I would say top 3.
Did he take over for Ertz?
I would say. Ertz to me is on the decline.
You're doing Kelsey, Kittle, Waller now?
Yeah, to me, Ertz has been a little bit not bad. He's still in top 5 for me, but I'd say he moved out. Even Ingram's up there. You got to be looking out for the Hawkinson boys moving up now. Yeah. These guys are tight end is so deep right now.
And so I'm going to say they need to get better defensively. They need to be able to rush the passer.
Yeah.
They get rid of Khalil Mack, and they say they're going to – that was a mistake. I mean, yes, I understand what you got for him, but you didn't really draft a difference maker with those picks that you got. And so now it's like, okay,
those are good players, but what you got out of it are good players. You didn't get great players out of that.
Right.
I don't think I think they averaged a C+ in their draft last year. Everyone they got was good depth players. They can play defensive tackle, but they're not the difference maker.
Right.
That's the thing. So other than Waller,
do you see them taking a step back?
I do.
Or do you see them staying the same or moving up?
I see them finishing 3rd, not 2nd this year.
You've got a hard on for the Chargers.
I do.
Yes.
Not literally.
No, but you know what I mean.
I think they're going to do better. I think they're going to do better this year.
And so Las Vegas, I think, again, if you're going to stock your team with good players, that's fine. But you're a couple more years away then. Yeah. And then in that case, yes, you do need a younger quarterback. Because you're not going to pay Carr top quarterback money. And I don't know how much longer he has. I know he's under contract, but I don't know how much longer he has.
I have no idea on his contract.
It's going to be interesting. We need a stat guy. We need somebody that when we say these things, he looks up.
We need one guy over there in the corner. Yeah,
goes and looks it up real fast.
We
need
and
tells us.
We'll call him like Squirrel or something.
Yeah, it's but we need one of those. So when we make it big, we're gonna have one. So
all right, we're gonna get there one day. Yeah. I will say though, I think the reason we'll go right into the Chargers here in a minute is the reason I agree with what you said. I'm not saying I have a hard on for the Chargers. What I'm saying is I think talent wise, I think one team is on the up, and I think one team looks like they were going down to me in the second half of the season. What I'm saying is I could see both these teams being 8-8. I could see both of them being 9-7. I think they're both going to battle for 2 and 3. And there's another team we'll get to that I don't think is even relevant. Okay. But what I wanted to say was with the Chargers, I think you have a lot of your positions figured out. I think the problem is execution. You got to execute. They played 16 games last year like everyone else. 9 of their games were within a field goal or a touchdown, and they lost those 9. It's just coming down to the last drive, and I put that on the quarterback. I put that on the coach they had. I think Eckler's great. I think Keenan Allen's great. I think Hunter Henry's going to be gone. That will be a step back.
Is Eckler a number 1 running back?
No, that's the thing. But okay. I think he catches the ball a lot. He's a great pass-catching running back. But I think with the Chargers, what you see is improvement. You play in a great dome, and then defensively, you're okay. You need help.
Your top guys keep getting hurt
That's
every
the problem,
year.
Yeah.
And so, but maybe their most important position is strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
Because you have Bosa that doesn't play a full season. You have another defensive lineman that doesn't play a full season that's really good.
But on paper...
And then that safety that's missed 2 seasons, I think, now.
On paper... They have a lot of talent. It's just they have to put it together.
Yeah.
I think, to me, them and the Raiders feel a lot similar, but I think at least at offense,
Who did they hire as their coach?
I can't remember his name right now, but I'll search it here in a second. I think my issue with the Chargers is who your quarterback is. You have Keenan Allen. You have Guyton, who's been a great wide receiver for you. I think realistically, I'm going to probably put the Chargers, to me, in the same boat as the Bengals. I want to kind of compare them to the same here. I think they both could make that one step up with 2 or 3 more wins than they had the year before.
Okay.
If
they went with one of the McVay's understudies.
That's
again,
what it was.
Brandon Staley, defensive coordinator.
Yep. So I know they talked about wanting to help out the defense because you had your last coach who was a running back guy and never ran the ball. But this is the thing. They remind me of the Bengals, right? In a way that you know what you're doing offensively. You do. You have a great wide receiver core. I mean, they have Guyton. I get he's a good wide receiver. Keenan Allen is a great wide receiver. Yeah, your tight end position's not figured out, but neither is the Bengals. And I think offensive line is their biggest key. Offense and defense, to me, just like the Bengals and tight end. I think they're very similar. You both have your quarterbacks. And I will say that both of those teams, Bengals and the Chargers, I could see being 8-8, 7-9, 9-7 teams. Anywhere around there would be a great season for both.
Okay, so is Herbert going to take steps forward, or is he going to plateau?
I'm going to say plateau or decline, but not in a bad way. He blew the stats out the water last year. I don't think that's going to happen again.
Okay.
I think instead of 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, you could see 3,600 yards, 29, 30 touchdowns, a little less. I think you'll see a little decline. That was a little ridiculous for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and that's not a bad year. Like
no.
It's like, and I've said this about Burrow. I've said this about, and it's the big thing that I see about Jackson and why I'd pay Allen over Jackson is you see that progression every year.
Yeah.
And where the Browns are in that place too, because are you seeing progression enough to pay Baker another contract, or is this something where you could say maybe do what you're doing, pay your running backs, keep those running backs, keep the offensive line, and then get a quarterback in there that can do what Baker does but not pay Baker money?
I agree with what you said. What I wanted to rebuttal to that was when you said seeing improvements like you saw to Josh Allen. Josh Allen's rookie year was close to booty. It wasn't that good. It was okay.
But they made that team.
I know.
Was that you saw that team
that team
where
bought
you
in.
said, and Lamar Jackson the same way.
Yeah.
When he came in, they were 4-5.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And then they went to the playoffs. They won the division.
Yeah.
They won 5 out of 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
Now my thing is this though. You didn't see progression in the next 2 years out of Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You saw those huge steps that Allen made. Now, I'm not saying a quarterback has to make huge steps. Yeah. I'm saying Burrow does. You got to, 1, prove you're healthy. 2, prove that you can put up better numbers than what you put up last year.
Yeah.
Because the bar is set high for what your counterparts did.
Yeah.
And, not counterparts, because I think him and Herbert were the only 2 that started that were rookies.
Tua didn't start till later in the year.
Right. So, but I don't think you're going to be comparing Burrow to Herbert for years.
It's going to be the Brady Manning thing again.
Brady Manning or the Luck versus RG3,
or even the Dak versus Wentz for years.
Yeah. So Wentz Goff too.
Yeah,
Wentz,
which is funny because if you think about it, even though I know Dak's not signed, he's the only quarterback from that whole draft class still on his team.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
But I've said this. Yeah. Somebody said, I think somebody put that they like the Chargers on that Facebook post. And
I think his name's Ryan. I might have gotten that wrong.
And I'm not convinced you have the team that you think you have.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes sense. I don't. Like you said, on paper, playing Madden, this may be the young, fast team that you want to play with. But how does it gel on the field?
Yeah.
How is this guy going to make their defense better? How is he going to stop those last-minute drives from happening? Can Herbert make that next step? And the way Herbert makes that next step, I'm sorry, is with a running game.
Mm-hmm.
And
they didn't have much of it.
I think losing Henry, if he doesn't sign back, is going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Not having a very good offensive line is going to hurt. Having a hurt defense is going to hurt.
Well, they'll be healthy going into the season, but yeah.
Yeah, but 7-9, that's a really good season for what you had. Because Eckler was out most of the season.
And like I told you, 7-9, and 7 of their 9 losses, when I read this the other day, were all within a touchdown. So you could have easily, this is being dumb here, okay, everyone who's listening, but that team could have easily been 14-2. if they would have just won those games.
Yeah.
I know that sounds stupid, and I didn't mean that, so someone will take that, and I will get a message for that. What I mean is you have to win those fourth quarter 7-point games.
Yep.
You have to do that, and that comes down to, I didn't say it earlier in the year because I was on a high horse with this team, but it comes down to your quarterback. You got to get that done.
Yeah.
But for me, I think the Chargers, I'm a little bit higher on them, not because of Herbert. I'm a little bit higher on them because they have the more skill positions that I think are better in some ways on offense and defense than the
Just so you know, they were they didn't score a lot of points. They were bottom half of the AFC in points scored, which shocked me because I thought they were in shootouts. I thought it was more shootouts than they were.
They were low
games.
scoring shootouts. But most of them, I bet you if you look, and I could be wrong, I know you're looking on your phone, you would probably see 80% of theirs were passing touchdowns.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I know, but
they only scored 384 points last year.
And their defense, they didn't score a lot of points because their defense didn't get turnovers. Their defense didn't come up in the fourth when they needed them to.
Yep.
So Burrow had to go.
And they won their last 4 games, which is good. And I could see them finishing second in the division.
Yeah.
I see maybe a 2-game difference.
Yeah, no. When I said that, I said they're 7-9. I see 8-8, maybe 9-7.
Yeah,
not a big change, but I could easily see 4-12.
See, I was going to go the other way. I could easily see a 10-win season.
You could?
Yes.
Okay.
Just because of the potential is there.
Yeah.
And if you can get a couple signings now and stay healthy.
Yeah.
And that's the big key. Now, this next... You said it. Denver. I was right. Just say I was right about Drew Lock.
You were.
Okay?
You were right.
And... because I said you were right earlier to this episode.
Well, you got to tell me I was right, too, because I was right on Herbert, too.
Yeah, that's true.
No, but true. I was very wrong on Drew Lock.
Would you rather be Houston or Denver?
Is it after I traded Watson? If we're talking right now.
Yes.
And I know we're going to get rid of Watson no matter what, I want Houston. But I do like Denver's defense. I like their wide receivers. They've got I'm not going to lie. Denver's not terrible, but their quarterback position was their biggest problem. They've got no real good running back. They've got 2 or 3 decent guys. You have Fant, who I think is great. You have...
I think Fant's a top 5 tight end.
I do too. Judy, who's a great wide receiver. That's where he went. The other kid, Deshaun Hamilton, did fine as well.
Yep.
And then defensively, you still have a top 15 defense in the league.
I remember after the draft, our friend Logan said that Denver was going to light up the league. He said Denver's offense is going to be dirty.
I really thought they were too. I'm not going to lie.
I was like, are you serious? You have so many young pieces. Like, just because these kids were good in college, and I hate Drew Lock. I don't hate him. It's a strong word. He's not a good quarterback. Yeah. He is not a quarterback you can win. They got lucky they won 5 games.
Who do you hate more, Drew Lock or Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson. Because nobody says that Drew Lock is the best quarterback in the NFL.
That's true.
Not a single person in the NFL would ever say that. But there are people out there that say Lamar Jackson is probably a top 3 quarterback in the NFL.
He's a top 3. He's like top 1 athlete.
But it is... Denver, to me, is in complete rebuild without admitting they're in complete rebuild.
Exactly.
And you have a Hall of Fame,
it's what the Eagles have been in 4 years.
I will say a top 7 all-time quarterback.
Who can't find his heir apparent.
That can't... You can't judge quarterbacks.
Where are they picking, by the way? Are
Denver?
They picking top 10? They have to be, right?
Yeah, they were 5-11, so they're top 10.
They need to take that Trey Lance kid. They just got to do it. They got to get another quarterback.
I'd have PTSD on drafting quarterbacks if I was Denver right now.
He's been trying for so long to get his guy.
I'd be sitting there going like this. Make the call.
What are you, Michael J. Fox over there? Calm down?
Just like all of a sudden you just start hearing bombs go off like in the middle of you trying to pick another quarterback, and you're just like, no, don't do it. If I'm Denver, I try to trade everything I've got for a veteran.
A veteran quarterback?
Yes. I go
after... Like who?
Go after Watson. Why not? Go after a Derek Carr.
I really don't think their pieces are that bad.
Go after a Garoppolo, somebody like that.
I think Derek Carr would be a good pickup for them.
But it is...
Sign Dak Prescott. If we don't re-sign him.
It's just... I don't know what... Elway needs to... he does so well drafting other positions. But he can't draft the quarterback.
Do you have a list of his last quarterback drafts? Like, I want to.
He picked up Osweiler.
I know.
He drafted Osweiler. Now, he also made it so Osweiler got paid.
Dude, just so we're clear, in my 27-year life, I've never seen a robbery as bad as Brock Osweiler in the Houston Texans.
Yeah, he's number 9. They're drafting 9th.
I mean, they're in position. I mean, they could even get a Kyle Trask. I mean, if they want to reach for him. They could reach for that Alabama kid. I don't know what his name is. What's the Alabama kid's last name?
Alabama kid? Jones.
Yeah. Mac Jones.
Like, Carolina is going hard after Deshaun Watson. Detroit just got Goff. Philadelphia's idiots.
Let me ask you this. I'll stop you right there. Because there's rumors of being trying to trade Teddy Bridgewater.
I would take Teddy Bridgewater.
I would say, if you're Denver, do you make that call?
If they're not asking for a first or second round pick, I make that call.
What if you have? I think no, Denver doesn't. So you're talking like maybe a third this year and a fifth next year. You do that deal?
I'd do a third and a fifth this year.
Yeah,
for Bridgewater.
I think
I'm a fan of Bridgewater.
I am too. His story's great.
I feel bad for this kid. He was a top quarterback in the league when he got hurt. Like, he was up and coming. He was that name. And last year when he played for New Orleans, he put up numbers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think...
And quietly, he put up good numbers this year. He really did.
I just think that Matt Rule is falling in love with... Did I get his name right?
Matt Rule, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Baylor
coach.
He's
falling in love with the big name.
Yeah.
And Watson's a stud. I'm a big fan of Watson. But I think Rule is falling in love with the big name. And I think he can really do... I think he thinks he can do better with Deshaun Watson than he can with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Especially with the weapons you have there.
Yeah.
But yes, I would take Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. I would trade for Teddy Bridgewater if I was Denver.
I don't think Denver, and this sounds crazy, I don't think Denver's that bad. I watched probably 4 or 5 of their games, okay? Their defense is suspect, but they've had glimpses of being good enough to compete.
Let's put it this way. They didn't lose 11 games because they didn't compete.
Yeah.
Okay, like their coach had them playing hard. And defensively, they might be in a little bit of a transition because Von Miller's not going to be extended.
Remember,
they're not picking up his extension of $18 million this year. And they have Chubb, who's on the outside, and they can build around him. They have a good, solid core, I would say. And then offensive line, they're decent.
Yeah.
Running back, I think it was a huge, huge mistake. Bringing on Melvin Gordon and not using him as a bell cow.
Yeah.
You can't do the Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay thing. Melvin Gordon is a 3-down back that is as talented as Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't think that's overstating. Yes, he's older than Dalvin Cook, but he is on that caliber of running back. And he was in San Diego, and then they fell in love with Eckler. Yeah. Which was, as we saw, if you put Melvin Gordon on that Charger team right now, completely different.
Yeah.
Because you're not relying on Herbert to throw the ball 40 times a game.
And that's why I wanted to jump back to that about the Herbert thing, is I don't think he's going to be as crazy passing the ball. I don't think he'll take a step back, but I think they need to find a way to utilize the run game more because they're going to figure him out throwing the ball as much as he did.
Yes.
He's got an incredible arm, though, but they're going to end up figuring that out. And I think when I say I think he's going to take steps improving, I think he will, but not in stats. I think he'll make better decisions. I think he'll do better in the fourth. But when you have 4,000 yards and 30 TDs in your rookie year, people are like, well, he only had 25 his second year. Is that really a step back? Look how good that rookie year was. So I just think as long as he does well and keeps around that. But Denver's got to figure it out because I think offensively they have decent skill positions. Their running backs aren't bad. But the thing is like Drew Lock, the games I watched, and even that one game, they had to cancel. They played that one game with a wide receiver as quarterback, but let Baltimore reschedule for weeks.
But my thing is this, is you can't even evaluate their rookie wide receivers because you don't know what you have with them. You don't. Because you didn't have anybody throwing it to them.
No.
And so it's one of those things where I just want to see what they do. They have to quarterback is that you have to say quarterback.
Yeah.
You really do. Like, and it's just like most teams in the league, biggest question mark, quarterback or offensive line.
Almost every team.
Very little of what we've been saying in the last 2 episodes is wide receiver
Yep.
Tight end. Yes, they're on that list, but the number one need has either been quarterback or offensive line. Yep. And there's only so many of them around.
Yep.
And we could have a record number of quarterbacks changing teams this offseason.
Yep.
And that's why I think everybody's so excited about this offseason, is because you could see the potential of the bottom tier teams spending money and becoming a top tier team.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I'm excited, because the Bengals last year proved they're not afraid to spend the money.
No.
And the Bengals never spend money.
Yeah.
They've never spent money in free agency. Never, ever, ever. It's always bothersome. All of a sudden, they were one of the top spending teams last year. They have enough money this year to go after those players and not put themselves and not handicap themselves, because you have your top two guys on offense signed, which is Mixon and Boyd.
And Burrow. Okay. I mean, yeah, but I
here's the thing: you got Burrow and Higgins for 5 years,
that's what I meant. So they're technically signed for
exactly. So you can sign an offensive line, 2 offensive linemen for 4 years. You can sign these guys and then still have money on the back end of those contracts to spend on Burrow and Higgins and whoever else you draft. That's why it is so. This offseason is so important for some teams,
and it's going to be fulfilling for every one of these episodes we do. How much information we try to squeeze in an hour, because there's going to be so many moves.
Right,
I guarantee you.
Today's Monday. We had to do this Monday because of my work schedule.
Yeah,
and tomorrow starts. People can start franchising tag people.
Yep.
So you're gonna. And we talked about it before we started airing. This week could really see a lot of dominoes start to fall, where teams start to take shape of what they're going to do.
I mean, just
AKA Dallas, the biggest franchise tag out there right now is going to be Dallas and what they do with Dak.
And what we said right before we went on is, as a Dallas fan here, if Dak gets franchised, that makes about 10 different teams their ticker start immediately. I mean, just literally lights out.
Yes.
If you sign him to that kind of deal, every other team goes to instant panic mode. And I'm not saying if they weren't targeting Dak or not, but when you know the top quarterback's out of the free agent, and I'm not bringing Watson to this because Watson is signed, but when you bring Dak and Dak gets signed by Dallas or gets franchise tagged by Dallas, every other team goes, okay, guys, Dak's off the board. That means now Stafford's off the board. Goff is off the board, and Wentz is off the board.
Yep.
Guys, we got to make moves if we're going to get
the top tiers.
Yeah.
The top tier is gone.
Pretty much.
Okay,
well, it depends on who you're including the top tier. I don't think really any of those quarterbacks are top tier, honestly.
For the free agents.
For the free agents.
Yeah. So the top tier free agents are gone at quarterback. Now you're going after, is Garoppolo available? Is Carr available?
Now it's all going to be trades.
Yes, and Watson is the biggest name.
Yeah.
How much is it going to take? And that is the thing where if you're, say, the Patriots, the Washington football team, not Indianapolis anymore, but you're these teams, Denver, do we want to take our future and go after Watson, or do we want to call San Francisco and say, what's it going to take for Garoppolo?
Or do you want to call Minnesota,
Carolina, see what it's going to take for Bridgewater. Call Minnesota, see what it's going to take for Kirk Cousins.
What I mean with some of these quarterbacks, I'm not saying they're not good comparative. Like, I'm going to put Dak and Watson in this category. Expensive or a lot to offer. Are some of these quarterbacks we just named worth going after? Like, if you're DC, is it worth going after a Bridgewater, one of these guys, or selling your soul for one of these other 2 Watsons? Or like, that's what I'm trying to say. These teams are in a catch-22. Do you sell your soul for Watson, or do you try to go after Derek Carr?
If I'm Carolina, yes, I sell my soul for Watson.
But do you think you're good enough for what you're about to get?
Yes, because I look at my division.
Yeah, I understand.
I look at my division and I say, you know what? Maybe not this year, but next year.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what New Orleans is going to do. You don't know what Atlanta's doing. And Atlanta's getting older. New Orleans is getting older. And Tampa Bay is Tom Brady retiring from being the bottom of the division again.
Yeah.
And that's not an overstatement either.
No, they will be.
And so if I'm Carolina, I'm making these moves for not this year coming up.
Yeah.
But
and they got decent weapons on offense.
Exactly. And so that's why, like, if I'm Carolina, yes. If I'm Washington, no.
Yeah.
I would go after a Bridgewater, a Garoppolo. They already had Kirk Cousins, but a Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I'd probably put Carr and Bridgewater at the top over Garoppolo.
I would go after those guys because you don't have to pay as much for them,
and you won't have to give up as much for them,
and you don't have to give up as much for them, and you can still keep building.
Yeah.
Where Carolina, I think Carolina looks at their offense and says, "We're there, we're there for the next 5 years. We have the talent for the next 5 years." Defensively, we're young, but we love what we have.
Yeah.
By them saying we're going to give you 3 first rounds and Christian McCaffrey, what they're saying to me as a team and a coaching staff, I love what we did defensively this last draft.
And they love that player who played when CMC was hurt.
Right.
I can't think of his name right now. Davis maybe? Yeah,
Mike Davis. And so that's why it's going to be so much fun to watch. And I just hope we're not disappointed with no moves instead of a ton of moves.
Yeah, personally for me, I don't think we'll be disappointed, but tomorrow starts it.
Yep.
We'll see. Other than that, next week
we'll talk about NFC East, NFC North, unless you want to save the NFC East for last.
It doesn't matter to me.
We'll see if we can get Logan or Nate on to talk about the NFC East. I'll let you guys.
We'll keep it interesting for the guys because if no Dallas Dak news breaks this week, we might be able to move NFC East another week later to see if that happens. But if a Dak news does break, that'd be an episode, or a trade with DC for their quarterback. If one of those two things happen, we'll have the NFC East on the week this week coming up. Right. If we don't have any of those news between DC or Dallas, we'll just do the North and the South or whatever it is, or the West. Okay.
Right. Sounds good.
Other than that, everybody have a great one, and we'll hopefully see you guys soon.
Yep. Talk to you
see
next
you guys.
week.